The presentation we are about to hear will be shared by Corey Proens. Corey is the founder and CEO of IQ Workforce, the leading talent firm for the analytics community. IQ Workforce has the largest analytics talent network in the country. They provide clients with direct hire services, contingency and retain, independent consultants, and contract recruiting. Corey will take it away in just a minute, but I want to quickly remind you of a few housekeeping items. Please submit any questions you might have for the speaker in the QA window on your screen. There won't be any live QA following this session, but Corey and his team will be responding to your questions directly afterwards. Also remember to utilize the various engagement features on your screen, downloading handouts, and sharing social posts from Corey's session. All these actions earn badge points for you to stay in the running to win some sweet prizes at the end of today's event. With that, I'm going to hand the mic to Corey and sit back and enjoy along with the rest of you. Take it away, Corey.
All right, well, thank you, Jack. We've definitely enjoyed the breakout session so far. Hope everybody's ready to talk about how to recruit and retain analytics talent. So we'll jump right into it here. Jack actually just gave a nice little sales pitch on our company, so I'll spare you this. If you want to check us out, you can certainly go to iqworkforce.com. So I'll start out by saying, as a recruiter, I've never really been very interested in retention, but in the last few years, I've started to realize just how interconnected recruiting and retaining talent are. After a while, it's just pretty obvious that some companies have a much easier time recruiting and retaining the best analytics talent. And, they always seem to be the ones that have great data-driven cultures and strong reputations as analytics employers of choice. So before I even get started, I just want to mention a few things that these companies all seem to have in common. I think the top thing is impact. So, they make decisions based on the analytics team's data and their analysis. The best analytics practitioners usually want to have the opportunity to move the needle on the business. Next, I'll say career development. Am I developing my team? Am I enabling them to learn new skills and grow their career? Or am I forcing them to go somewhere else to do it? Especially millennials. This, as a group, they really seem to expect to be developed when they're working for you. Quality of life. The hardest people for us to recruit are usually the ones that have good work-life balance. So groups that have cultures who reward, heavy workload and hard work with time off or work from home situations, lots of PTO, or generally just encourage their employees to have balance, have a huge advantage. Some of the firms that we've worked with in the past really just burn people out, and that's just very expensive for everybody involved. And then obviously compensation. I think that, employers of choice pay market rate, and obviously that means they have to know what market rate is. So you want to stay on top of that. But if you're giving all this other stuff, you don't really have to overpay for top talent. And then finally, I think exposure is important. Exposure to the professional community, and I think it's good for everybody. You should encourage your team to share their accomplishments at conferences and industry events like this one. It builds their brand, but it also builds your brand as an employer of choice. So don't be afraid to let them network. So some of these themes are themes that I'll repeat later on, but I just wanted to start there because it's obviously important to know what your target audience wants. So the first tip that I have for hiring and retaining top analytics talent is to hire the best athlete. I think we can all agree that bad hires in analytics are very expensive. The dollar costs are high, but the time and momentum costs are even worse. And we see a couple of main drivers that lead to bad hires. The first one is trying to combine skills and experience sets that don't really exist in the market. Every one of our clients in every industry, whether they're big or small, they're trying to get the most out of their headcount. They only have so many seats on the analytics team, they only have so many dollars in the budget, and so when they get a new headcount, the temptation is to try to solve as many problems, fill as many gaps as possible. So what they'll often do is to combine a lot of different sets of skills and experience together and create these kind of Frankenstein jobs where there are really, very few candidates available in the real world, that are qualified. The second thing is, the second driver to bad hires is hiring for a tool set. This is very tempting, especially when you just spent months convincing your management team to upgrade your analytics tool stack, and now you need some people to come in and use all your new toys. But when you go out and you look for people who know how to use your tools the best, sometimes you end up hiring tool jockeys. In both cases, you would have been better off focusing on hiring the best athlete. So what does that mean? It means that you look for people with, what I think of as the best big skills, things like intelligence, work ethic, intellectual curiosity, drive, grit, obviously quant skills and tech skills, and culture fit. So these are, the types of job requirements that you usually see listed at the bottom of the job description. You see them listed there, things like ability to work well on a team, strong written verbal communication skills, strong interpersonal skills, and they seem like they probably get copied and pasted to the bottom of every job description. But those are usually the biggest reasons why someone succeeds or fails in the role. They should be at the top of the list of requirements. Not by themselves, of course. You need specific technical and quant skills, you need business knowledge, but you have to keep the big skills as the higher priority. It's very difficult to do, and very few companies do it consistently. One more thing that I want to add to that, is that this is a very quickly evolving field. So the tools and the processes that you're using today probably won't even be around a few years from now. So if you hire great overall athletes, people with great big skills, they can grow and evolve with you. If you hire the guy who knows your tools the best, or the Frankenstein guy who checks as many boxes as possible, you're A, probably not going to get the best talent available, and B, you're probably going to turn them over every 18 months. And that gets super expensive for everybody involved. So next I want to talk about culture fit. If you click over and look at your LinkedIn news feed right now, there are probably 3 or 4 articles on what makes a great corporate culture. It's something that's written about and talked about constantly as a fundamental key to success for any team, any company really. But I don't think most companies understand what culture fit really means when it comes to evaluating talent. Most companies, when they think about the culture of their team and they think about, who would, fit in well, in most cases they're basically looking for people who are just like them. People who went to the same schools, grew up in the same places, sound the same, look the same, have the same interests. In a way, they're kind of looking for friends. And that's kind of understandable. We spend more time with these people than we do with our real friends. So, it's normal to try to hire people that you like. I think that very often they think it'll make for a more productive work environment, when everybody can relate very well to each other. First of all, that's not correct. New research shows that culturally diverse teams who are unlike personality-wise are much more successful, productive, innovative, even creative. The bottom line is one of those things that we kind of already know, which is that having multiple viewpoints is valuable. But secondly, that's not even what culture fit is supposed to mean. Culture fit is supposed to describe the type of person who will be most successful, productive in your environment. So, the first thing you have to do is evaluate your environment. Evaluate how it is now and how you want it to evolve. What are the main qualities that will make someone effective on your team? And, there are loads of factors to consider. Things like how collaborative is your team? Does this person have to gather consensus and work well with others? Or can they just crank out work and produce results on their own? Maybe your VP is a real micromanager. Does the candidate do well in that type of environment? Do rule followers do well in your company, or do you look for rebels? How competitive or political is your environment? You might need people who can thrive in that setting. bottom line is you have to understand the dynamics of your team and imagine what life is going to be like for this person. Who would be happy in this role? What are the specific attributes that would make a person a fit? That's the culture fit for the role. That's the culture fit for the team and for the business unit. So next, I want to encourage you to use your marketing skills in recruiting. We all understand the supply and demand situation with analytics talent. Most of the active candidates that we work with are considering multiple opportunities. But for some reason, the industry standard for marketing these jobs to their audience is still boilerplate, shitty job descriptions. So, first, let's very quickly just hit on some of the elements of what a shitty job description looks like. First of all, they're written for an internal audience, using all kinds of internal company jargon that nobody outside the company understands, their own acronyms. You see things like, this is working in the Americas business for the CTE COE. Nobody knows what that means. And I still see job descriptions with the ridiculous laundry list of skills and experience under the qualifications section that seems to describe some kind of mythical analytics creature. And then there are just some basic things that most people want to know when they're potentially interested in a job that are usually missing from bad job descriptions. Things like, who does the role report to? What part of the business is it in? Who are the main stakeholders? How is success measured? Simple things. Anyway, that's just a few. I could talk about bad job descriptions all day, but let's keep it moving. So writing good job description is an important first step. Next, you have to create some compelling content that shows top candidates what life is like, what it looks like working on your team. There are some really interesting companies out there right now in the recruitment marketing space. You can check out some of the new products by Glassdoor or Smashfly. Smashfly actually had a recruitment marketing conference a few weeks ago, which was pretty cool. So most of the tools that are out there basically make it easy for you to create and distribute content. So instead of bad job descriptions, you want to create an overall candidate experience that shows talent, some simple things like, what does your office look like? What is life at your company sort of look and feel like? Show me some success stories of people who have started in my role and gone on to do interesting things. Show me the people I'll be working with and let me hear them talk about what we do and even how it's valued by the company. I think that the bar in the next year or two is going to shoot up for recruitment marketing. More and more we're going to have to start approaching our talent audience the way we approach our customers. We have to develop a talent brand and we have to create a good customer experience for top talent. Next, I think it's very important that you be a good partner to your recruiter. Corporate recruiters have a really tough job. They're usually working on at least 10 to 15 different jobs at a time. I personally know some guys that work on 40 or 50 at a time. And in most cases, they don't have any knowledge of analytics. So it's not really realistic to expect them to take this boilerplate job description and a 5-10 minute conversation with you and turn that into a field of qualified candidates. They're going to go post the job on LinkedIn, they're going to do some keyword searches, and then they're going to try to figure out which profiles are the best fit. Inevitably they almost have to turn the search into a checklist of keywords, which is usually not productive. So what you have to do is to be a good partner to this person, help them out. You have to do some basic things. One of the things you have to do is to provide good, detailed feedback that helps them, iterate their recruiting plan. Well, I'll talk about that a little bit more later. But, probably more importantly is you just have to make sure that they understand the basics about the role and about the function. What are some of the common roles you see in this area? What do these candidates do? How do they spend their day? What tools do they use? What are their keys to success? What are their biggest pain points or motivation points? What's the supply and demand situation like for these candidates? Just make sure they understand the basics. It'll help them, it'll give them some context when they're reading resumes and it'll give them a fighting chance of figuring out who's a good fit. Since these hires are so important, I recommend, sitting down with your in-house recruiter to look at profiles every couple of days. And even if it's just 20 minutes at a shot, explain to them why some people look more promising than others. This way they don't spend weeks going down the wrong path, and they can iterate their sourcing plan more quickly. So if you want to improve your recruiting and retention results, you really should consistently encourage work-life balance. You need to make that part of your culture. I mentioned before, the hardest people for us to recruit are the ones that have great quality of life in their role. People know that that's not easy to find these days. When they're thinking about potential job opportunities, a lot of analytics professionals are looking for signs that quality of life is high on your team. So what does that mean? What kinds of things are they looking for? So I'll give you a few examples that some of our clients do, on the work-life balance side of things that are really attractive to top analytics candidates. I think first of all, just recognition by management that work is not a marathon. Work is a marathon. It's a long race. It's not, back-to-back sprints constantly. People should work hard and they should be productive, obviously, but they should also be encouraged to shut it off after 8 to 10 hours a day. Another thing is virtual office, work from home, even if it's just 1 or 2 days a week. Employees definitely get hooked on flexibility. It's hugely valuable. If you can alleviate the grind of commuting and give someone back a few hours every week in the process, really valuable. Obviously PTO, some of our clients have unusual amounts or even unlimited PTO. We've seen sabbaticals after X number of years of service be very effective as a retention tool. And one of our clients actually has on-site childcare, which is amazing and very difficult to give up once you have it. So in general, I would just say that creating a reputation as a great quality of life shop can be very attractive to new candidates, and it obviously can be amazing for retaining your best talent as well. So a lot of our clients get so caught up in evaluating candidates while they're recruiting them that they forget that the interview is a two-way street. So if you're not Google or Apple or Tesla or a company like that, you're going to have to do some selling. As I said earlier, if the candidate is actively in the market, they're probably in the process with at least 2 or 3 other companies. So, why should they come work for you? I think the most important thing to do is to listen to them when they tell you what's motivating them. And then at some point in the process, but sooner than later, just take the time to describe the role in those terms. Tell them how this job is going to address the specific things that are important to them. Then, during the process, you should also cover things like, make sure they know how their success will be measured. Make sure they know what the career path is for the role. How well defined is the career path. A lot of the talented analytics professionals that I know want to keep learning and growing, and they prefer not to have to go search for a job every 18 months to find career growth. By the time an analytics professional, sort of masters his role, there should be a next step, waiting for them that, can include a bump in title or, some new tools or new problems to solve, new data to work with, a bit more exposure to executives or decision makers, some more influence or impact, and then obviously more money, at least as much as you would pay a replacement if you lose the person. So, analytics professionals in the first 4 or 5 years of their careers are usually millennials. And, whatever your opinion of this group, the fact is that they expect to be promoted every 18 months. So if you can find a way to give small steps up every 18 months, you can significantly extend tenure, you can improve the ROI for everybody, and you can significantly increase the chances that they'll accept your job offer. Some other things that you want to mention are, well, probably the biggest other thing that you want to mention is training. Training is often even more valuable than money. If you can teach, for example, your digital analysts R and Hadoop, you completely change that person's career trajectory and you dramatically increase his market value. Yes, he might be recruited away from you as a result, but it should take longer and therefore everybody's better off. So the first thing that we said in the presentation was that you should hire the best athlete, the best available athlete, people with the best big skills. But what happens if your team needs a small skill or they only need a skill for a little while? You don't want to use up a head count or salary dollars on that because the need's either going to go away or you're waiting for someone else on your team, one of your great athletes, to learn and develop this skill. And this is where you want to go out and rent a skill. I liken it to a baseball team down the stretch, that goes out and picks up some short-term rental players at the end of the season to get them into the playoffs. You can engage with independent consultants like that to fill skill gaps on your team. If they're used well, there are a lot of benefits to dipping into the gig economy. First of all, you have faster time to hire. There's a much lower bar for bringing in an IC. 1 or 2 rounds and you can usually make the hire. If it's not a good fit, you can always pull the plug, usually within a week or two's notice. Sometimes our clients have budget, but they don't have headcount, so they can allocate the dollars to an independent consultant. I think you can expect faster time to contribution because independent consultants are generally expected to hit the ground running when they come in. And we have some clients that are kind of stuck in this place where they can't pay competitive salaries because for whatever reason they have political or process issues internally. So while they work that out, they bring in independent consultants. And finally, once in a while, they'll convert to full-time employees. When it's a good fit. One thing that I will mention is that it's not easy to find good independent consultants in analytics. There's nearly 100% employment in this space, so there's not a lot of bench talent out there, willing to do IC work. Good ones can be very tough to find, sometimes even tougher than full-time employees. Optimizing your interview process. This can make a big difference when it comes to landing the candidate that you want. In general, there are 2 things you can do that increase your close percentage. First one is just to shorten the process. We see a lot of great analytics candidates die on the vine before our clients get to finish the process. We have clients that take months to get people through the process. Candidates get bored, frustrated, they lose interest, or they just get offers elsewhere, while you're punting them back and forth. So a few basic guidelines. No more than 3 rounds of interviews for an analyst, no more than 4 rounds for managers and directors, no more than 5 rounds for senior execs. That includes, by the way, the HR phone screen. You should never have more than 1 week in between rounds, and you should never have more than 48 hours before feedback is given and sent around. The second thing you can do is to make sure everybody in the process has a specific job and that they stick to it. So, each person who's interviewing candidates should focus on what they know best. You don't want feedback on culture from your tech guy. You don't want feedback on quant skills from your HR guy. You want everybody to stay in their lane. That's why we have our swimmers here, staying in their lane. The last thing that you want is thumbs up, thumbs down feedback from anyone. It doesn't move the ball forward at all when a hiring manager says, I didn't like him, let's keep looking. They should walk out of the interview with rankings, on specific questions that evaluate the candidate based on their area of expertise and the specific qualifications for the role. That's what moves the ball forward. And if you have to, you can very simply create evaluation sheets for each interviewer and just ask them to rank the candidate from 1 to 5, on each area of qualification. That way you can objectively compare people. Okay, don't chase purple squirrels. Beware of them. Purple squirrels are sort of imaginary dream candidates who make all of your analytics problems disappear with a single hire. So purple squirrels are born when a new role is open without checking to see if the combination of skills and experience that you're looking for actually exists in the talent market. If you skip this step, the costs are very high. First of all, the performance of the team suffers. All the initiatives are put on hold, you lose momentum and you lose time while the search drags on. The pressure and the workload builds up on the rest of the team, not to mention uncertainty, especially if the purple squirrel is a leadership role. It's bad branding for your team. So by the time your purple squirrel is open for 6 months, you'll have dozens, maybe even hundreds of people exposed to it. And for the next few years, a lot of them will just think of you as one of those purple squirrel companies, not really analytics employer of choice type of stuff. And finally, they're very expensive. As a purple squirrel, drags on, they drain a lot of valuable time and focus and resources from your HR team and from your own team as they interview candidates that don't meet the qualifications. So, I think that there's no harm in starting a search with a very narrow focus, and shooting for the perfect candidate. But it's important to know that it's expensive and damaging if you continue on that way for months. You really have to start the search knowing which qualifications are the highest priority. As time passes, you have to shift to look for the best overall athlete that has a combination of skills and experience that can make them successful, if not perfect. My favorite quote from this year's DA Hub came from one of my huddle leaders, Amy Sample. She said, I think of the unicorn that I really want to hire, and then I decide what kind of horse I'm willing to accept. And I thought that was perfect. Analytics employers of choice know that they have to divide up responsibilities across the team, and they have to train and develop the rest of the skills and experience that they need. And finally, I want to talk about the benefits of building versus buying talent. We work with a few companies who do very well recruiting kids out of local universities and training them up into analysts. And there's some real benefits to going this route. And if you're in a tight labor market, or if you have a very tight budget, you might not have any choice. So one of the things that's actually an interesting luxury of going this route is you really have to focus almost exclusively on big skills because that's all these candidates are going to have. And it also gives you the luxury of focusing more on culture fit. And so on the whole, you kind of up your chances of a good long-term match. Going this route also saves money. Companies that have big analytics teams can get a lot of bang for the buck this way. The downside to that, the problem, of course, is that your team gets poached quite a bit. When you try to underpay your trainee for a few years, so you have to, bring them up to market, when it's appropriate. But if you're working towards making yourself an analytics employer of choice, you should be able to stretch out the average tenure and get more ROI out of your trainees. And I think it's worth mentioning that career changers are a great option too. It doesn't always have to be a kid out of college. Lots of people with great complementary skills and experience would love to work in analytics. So you can go get people from the business side or with solid tech or quant skills. So that's pretty much all I have today. Thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope you picked up some usable tips and that'll help you build and retain your analytics team.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Corey. It's really been our pleasure to hear from Corey Proens with IQ Workforce today, and we're excited to see what other great content is in store for the remainder of the summit. If you want to learn more about IQ Workforce or ObservePoint and how these solutions can better support your digital marketing efforts, be sure you visit the sites noted on your screens. Also take a minute to browse the vendor booths in the conference hall, and I'll hope to catch a few of you in the next session that starts in about 5 minutes.